Rolling. Tommy Smith here with Rattle and Home Sports. We are joined by Matthew Postins, our Dallas Cowboys insider. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Tommy.
We're out here at Boomer Jacks again to shoot our Dallas Cowboys content cast. Matthew, we're going to talk a little bit about what was a kind of hurting loss there in Buffalo. Baltimore last week. Give us your opinion on what you saw there against the Ravens for the Cowboys.
Well, I think the most important thing to come out of that game was the fact that the running game finally got on track. It's been about a month since they had a decent game on the ground. Everything the Cowboys indicated leading up to that game was that they were making a commitment to the run game again, and it certainly bared out. It wasn't just that DeMarco Murray had a good game. Felix Jones had a good game. Philip Dunbar had a good game. Even Lance Dunbar, the one carry he had in the game was for 11 yards. Nate Livings told us after the game that he didn't even know that Lance Dunbar was back there when he had his one carry. So it really didn't matter who ran the football last week for Dallas. They gained yards, and that's the way you get to a productive run game week in and week out, where it doesn't matter who the ball carrier is. It matters what the offensive line is doing up front.
Okay, and then, of course, the big thing at the end of the game is time management, clock management there at the last drive. What are your thoughts on that? You wrote an interesting piece in Rattle and Home Sports about that.
Well, I don't think it's so much about time management in this particular case. This isn't a case like last year in Arizona where Jason Garrett clearly should have taken a timeout when he should have taken one. This was a situation where I don't think the play call was the correct call. To throw a 1-yard pass when you have 26 seconds left on the clock and you have one timeout and you're trying to give your kicker a little bit more breathing room, the difference between a 45-yard kick and a 50-yard kick probably would have meant that kick went through the upright. I'm not really sure why the Cowboys chose to throw a short pass in that situation rather than trying to throw something down the field. I mean, the worst thing you want to happen in that case is an incomplete pass. I think they could have accomplished that with a 5 or a 10-yard slant as opposed to throwing a 1-yard pass to Des Bryant where Bryant has to break the tackle in order to do it.
Injuries out of the game. Obviously, DeMarco Murray is probably the biggest. Doesn't look like he's going to play this weekend, but there are a couple others. You want to talk about some on the offensive line and also defensive line? Yeah,
the offensive line, you get Phil Costa back for a week. The offensive line seems to play well, and now he's hurt again. Not necessarily the same type of injury he had that kept him out of the lineup for a month, but he's banged up a little bit. He's limited in practice. It sounds like there's a decent chance he'll play, but Ryan Cook is out. Did not practice at all on Wednesday, probably won't play this week. So if Cook is out and Costa can't go, that means David Arkin is your starting center on Sunday against Carolina, and I'm not sure how well that serves you up front. Defensive line-wise, Sean Lissamore didn't practice Wednesday. Odds are not looking that good for him to play this weekend. It's a blow, but it's a manageable blow for this defensive line now that you have Jay Ratliff and Kenyon Coleman both back in the lineup. They've still got 6 guys up front they can rotate. The defensive line played very well without Lissamore last weekend, so you'd like to have him back, but if he's not able to play, it's not the worst thing in the world for this team.
And coming into the season, we heard so much about DeMarco Murray and his contributions this year, how important it was going to be. Obviously, he suffered the injury now. How do the Cowboys deal with this injury with Murray?
Well, I think first of all you have to hope that Felix Jones can handle a bigger load this week. And he showed last week that they got him outside against a defense that wasn't very good at defending the outside run in Baltimore, and Felix Jones had a good game. I think what the Cowboys are going to have to do first is figure out where Carolina is vulnerable to the run, and they are vulnerable to the run. Their defense has not played very well against the run this year. They find out where the weak spots are, and that's where they send Felix Jones. I think you're going to see more Philip Tanner. I think you're going to see more Lance Dunbar. Jason Garrett said today it's not so much about having one guy back there and giving him the football 25 times. It's about putting the right guys in the right situations to where they can be successful. So it's not just going to be Felix Jones. It's going to be Philip Tanner, and it's going to be Lance Dunbar. But Felix Jones is the guy. If they can get him 12 to 15 carries, and he can be as productive as he was last week, and then the run game should be in good shape.
Cowboys secondary, a big story coming in the offseason was the addition of Randy Carr. Drafting Claiborne, play that lockdown coverage for Rob Ryan, but it doesn't seem like they're creating turnovers in the secondary. Anything you can point out there, something you see that may be causing that?
Well, early in the season they seemed to be playing a lot of aggressive man defense, especially in the secondary. It seemed like this past weekend against Baltimore they were playing a little bit more back off the football, and I'm not sure if that was a condition of the game plan, if they saw something in Baltimore that led them to believe they needed to play off the football a little bit more. But they only have one interception overall as a team, and that's Sean Lee's interception from a couple of weeks ago. They just have not been able to do a good job of taking plays and converting them into turnovers. They've had a couple of good opportunities, but just haven't been able to either hang on to the football for an interception or for a fumble recovery. The secondary seems to believe that once they get a couple turnovers, they'll start coming in bushels. The good news is this secondary is far more talented than it was last year. They're capable of creating these turnovers that the offense needs to get extra possessions in the game. It's just a matter of when they come.
And 2-3 weeks ago, I guess Witten had his game to forget. A lot of people talking about maybe this was the end of the road for Witten. He comes back, he has, I think, second highest career receptions the first week back, and then another great game last week, even though there was a loss. Talk a little bit about where Jason Witten is.
Yeah, rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated. He's second on the team in receptions right now with 27, and that's him not really doing anything in the opener and having 4 drops in the second game. So the fact that he has 27 catches in basically 3 games is pretty astounding. You saw that fourth quarter catch where he basically picked the football off the ground on 4th down, kept that drive going so the Cowboys could get that touchdown and get in position for the 2-point conversion to tie the game. Witten's right back to where he was at the end of last season. He's back to being the security blanket for Tony Romo, and I have to imagine Tony Romo's very happy about that. And given the fact that Miles Austin hasn't quite been as productive as he's been in the last couple of years, the fact that Witten is right there leading the way yet again is a great sign that this offense might be rounding into shape. Okay,
we'll talk about the Panthers. Carolina Panthers is this week's matchup in Carolina. Of course, when we talk about Carolina Panthers, you're going to talk Cam Newton. They're off to a 1-4 start. What's a little bit different there in Carolina this year than maybe some of the success that they saw last year?
Well, I think part of what you said to me earlier is that have teams figured out Cam Newton, and I think to a certain degree they have. They have a year's worth of tape on Cam Newton, so they can scheme a little better, they can contain a little better. But I think what the bigger issue with this football team right now is they just don't have a whole lot of talent. I mean, they have Cam Newton, they have the running game with their 2 running backs, they have Steve Smith, but they really don't have a number 2 wide receiver. Not anybody that can take the heat off of Steve Smith and prevent defenses from doubling him. Ryan Khalil is out for the season, their all-pro center, gone for the year. That hurts them from a running game standpoint. And right now Cam Newton is getting more headlines for the fact that he's acting very, I'll just say, childish after games right now, as opposed to his play. And even his play is not that good. His completion percentage is down a couple percent. He's thrown 4 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. It's just a lot of different things that are really impacting this offense right now. Cam Newton is still an explosive player, and if you don't account for him, he can still definitely hurt you. But the whole offense is not playing together the way it played at this time last year.
What about the defense in Carolina? We saw them, lose that game to Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, a division game, and it was quite a comeback by Atlanta.
Yeah.
How's Ron Rivera, that defense, doing?
Well, I think it's a combination of needing time. He's only in his second year. The defense is not as talented as you might think it is. They have a couple of decent corners, including Chris Gamble. They have the great middle linebacker in John Beeson. But it's a lot of just not spare parts, but solid parts. There aren't a lot of really talented players on this defense right now, and it bears out in the fact that they lost the game to Atlanta with the big comeback the Falcons had in that game. They've lost close games and low-scoring games. They've lost close games and high-scoring games. They've been blown out. There hasn't been any consistency to this football team, whether it's been on offense or defense. The defense they're playing in Carolina is kind of a hybrid of what they played in Philadelphia and San Diego, and that's a product of the fact that Ron Rivera is the head coach, and he was in San Diego, and Sean McDermott is the defensive coordinator, and he was in Philadelphia. When you bring in a new coordinator and you bring in a relatively new head coach, it takes time to get your scheme going on the field, and I think that's part of the problem right now. There just has not been any consistency defensively right now from Carolina.
What do you see as far as prediction this weekend? History tells us this is a game the Cowboys win. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. So this week they win one, is that correct?
It would seem to be that they're due to win one this week, and I think this is a game they have to win. If you look at their schedule the next 3 weeks, they host the Giants, then they go to Atlanta, then they go to Philadelphia. Those are 3 brutal football games for this team, 2 of them within the division. On paper, this is a game Dallas should win. I'm not necessarily going to tell you they should win it handily, but they should win this football game. They have more talent than Carolina. I think they're playing better than Carolina overall. I think if Dallas goes in and runs the football the way they did last week, Tony Romo minimizes his mistakes. And everybody wants to talk about the interception he threw, but it's really the only mistake he made in that football game, the only glaring one. And the defense continues to be productive, maybe creates a couple turnovers, then I think they'll come out of Carolina with a win.
Do you think Tony Romo has to play a perfect football game, Matthew, for the Cowboys to win?
I don't think he does. You saw last week, he threw 1 interception. It was early in the game. It did lead to a touchdown, but Dallas came back and they almost tied the game, and they borderline should have won that game.
Right.
The great teams in the NFL, if their quarterback throws an interception and makes a mistake, they usually come back from that. I don't think the Cowboys are a great team. I think they're a good team. Mm-hmm. And you have a game like Tony Romo had a couple weeks ago where he throws 5 picks, you're done, basically. Right. When he throws 1 pick, there's no reason this team shouldn't be done when he makes 1 mistake. Mm-hmm. I said last week I felt like Romo would play better against Baltimore than he did against Chicago. That was the history. It bore out. Mm-hmm. He had a good game. He threw the 1 pick. Otherwise, I thought he handled the game pretty well. But by no means should 1 interception preclude the Cowboys from winning a football game. It's just that everybody sees Romo throw an interception, they go, well, it's the same old Tony, just threw another pick. Well, history suggests that when he throws 1 or 2 interceptions, this team can still win the game.
Matthew, we enjoy you coming out and doing this every Thursday with us. We'll do it again next week before the Giants.
Great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right.